saving millions with micro interactions. I'm so excited because micro interactions is something that is really close to my heart, and it is something that I really want to talk about from a long time. So why should you listen to me? I started my journey as a web developer 5 years back, did a lot of work in education sector, and then gradually jumped on the business side of things, did some business courses from MIT and learned about customer empathy, and now trying to find a relation between the customer empathy and the technology. So I can be a good guy to talk about micro interactions. So what are these micro interactions? Basically, they're nothing but just like little animations that you feel, see, use every day, but unconsciously. So you don't know even like when you are interacting with a micro interaction if you don't know that it is a micro interaction. Uh, they're just little animations made for user engagement and also at the layer of where intersection of the design and the user is happening. You must have seen something like this that Messenger introduced some time back. Most of you really like that feature where you just push the thumbs up button and it increases in size. But this is a kind of micro interaction, and we will learn like what are the pillars of micro interaction. So you will be more comfortable in understanding whenever you are interacting with any of those social media apps. Red alert, if you are using Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or anything while watching this talk, please do it, because if you do so in our coming up sessions, you will be able to understand more about micro interactions while interacting with them. So microinteractions principles are derived from the psychology of habit loop, which is basically divided into three major categories: cue, routine, and reward. Just take an example of you visiting a courtyard of your college and just walking there and see a shop where you buy a cookie and then eat the cookie and enjoy with your friends and come back to your home. What is there that keeps you motivated to buy that cookie? Is it like talking to your friends, or is it like the urge of having sugar? Everything is a habit, and everything we do from the morning till the night is just our habit. Every habit is driven by either the reward, which then transformed into a routine, but always starts with a trigger. The trigger is known as the cue. The routine is something that we follow, and the reward is something that gives us the motivation to continue that routine the next day. Now, if we transform the exact habit loop into web or mobile or any of the technology interfaces, they are known as microinteractions. Microinteraction concept begins from a trigger, ends to a loop. Whenever you interact with an application, it can be a trigger that is generated by the user, or it can be a trigger that is generated by the system. A trigger can be a click, a hover, a gesture, or something that the system is triggering itself, like an alarm. Every time you write a trigger, you actually write rules for that trigger. So every trigger that you are going to write, there should be some rules that you are going to specify what should happen when this is triggering. And the user on the other side is going to get the feedback based on that trigger. This is a loop, and it happens again and again, again and again, till the micro interactions complete, or the entire flow where the user starts interacting till the end process completes. There is a saying in UX where it says that individual interactions, if they are the cells that make up the user experience, then micro interactions are the atoms within those cells. And that means like if you are going to a website and interacting with a website, there should be some micro interactions there by which you are interacting daily, or whenever you are opening the website. Now, what is the relation between the user experience and the revenue? So the more the user experience is, the more the customer experience would be, the higher the revenue of the generating site would be, the more the conversion rates would be, the more the retention rates would be. So your primary goal for anything while you are taking the customer from Instagram channels or social media channels or from wherever on the website, your primary goal is to convert them or to give them the best user experience. The more the best user experience there would be, it will result higher in the revenue growth. Now, there are some research findings and there are some industrial studies that actually talk about how user experience is contributing to the revenue. Generally, there is underestimate that people underestimate this fact that user experience is not the core of their workflow or the core of their startup or whatever they're making, but generally user experience is a huge factor that drives the conversion rates. There's a study in which it is clear that generally whenever you spend a $2, you can get up to $100 if your user experience is correct and you understand your customer's persona. You actually think about your customer while designing things on the website. So what is the relation between then micro interaction and the return of investment or the revenue? See, user experience and return of investments are actually interlinked. So they have an intersection. And then micro interaction belongs to the user experience category. And there is a huge interaction between the returns that you are getting in terms of money or number of customers, if that is your growth metrics, and the micro interactions that are happening on the website or the app or anywhere on the hardware or any stuff that you are building. But how to start with them and how to move forward? What is there to understand in these micro interactions? We understand about the feedback loop. We understand about how there is a trigger that initiates the micro interaction, how it goes forward till you get the loop. But what is the way to make those micro interactions that we are going to learn now? What we need to design in a micro interaction is just the SVG, HTML and CSS, and some JS skills. So I think most of you already know basics of HTML, CSS, and JS. So nothing is going to stop you while designing the micro interaction even today. And we are going to cover a bit about SVGs because they are not so difficult to learn. So SVGs are just the maps inside the browser, which is which is present inside the document object model. So you can go and check any website, inspect the document object model, and can get where is the SVG, where is that map that these people are using in terms of creating a micro interaction. All the SVGs does not create micro interaction. It's only those SVGs which on which you write the animations, which can become micro interactions. Also, SVGs make your life a lot easier because they're highly responsive and scalable graphics. So if you make SVGs animated on the web, then you don't need to take care of the scalability or the responsiveness issue when it goes to the mobile or any of those devices in different width and height sizes. So design for one, get for everyone. That's the role of SVG. And the performance of SVGs are obviously greater than any other formats because they are just maps and they don't do HTTP requests like other resources do when you use them like PNGs or JPEGs or any other format. So use SVGs even if you are not designing any micro interaction is also the best one of the best practices. Now, I have gone through various libraries on internet to just check what would be the best library to design a micro interaction. And I came across these three libraries, which are very popular all over the internet. In this talk, we are going to talk about the third one, which is Green Sock API. That's pretty interesting because a lot of things can be easily achieved using Green Sock. And if you just go to GreenSock documentation today, it's so easy to start with. And if you go with the SVG.js, there are pretty good examples which you can just copy paste and do that stuff. GreenSock takes a little bit of time and a learning curve to start with, but once you are into it, there's nothing that is going to stop you because the work there is limitless. So this is something that I created some time back when I started with simple HTML, CSS, and JS. This does not include any green sock or any catchy stuff, but it is something the core of HTML, CSS, and JS. And in JS, we use jQuery. So what is it is this is a trigger, and when you click this trigger, it goes up and convert itself into a navigation bar or something which is fixed to show promotions on the website, or you can find out your own use cases. And then when you click it back, it again comes to and becomes a circular micro interaction. So let's see how this is done. So in the HTML, you see three different elements only. So all of them are classes and IDs. So specifically, interaction wrapper is a ID, and then content card is the ID. So this whole container you see on the front as the interaction wrapper, and this container that you see a yellowish at the bottom or orange at the bottom is a content card. And then you see this circular one. It is a fab or uh, having a class of fab pre. So what happens actually is in the JS is everything, the magic is happening inside the JS. So in the JS, when you click the fab, which is like fetching the element via the ID. When you click it, it will just toggle the class and add a class of fab post inside this fab. And when you click and at the same time, it takes the content card and add another class of content blue inside it. So when you click it, there are two classes that are just toggling. So this is becoming this one, and this color is also changing. But in CSS, if I can show you what is this fab post, which is not added previously, because this initially, if you see in HTML, consists of fab pre, but not fab post. But in JS, you toggle it to fab post. So if you go to CSS, you will find it like what is fab post. And this is the fab pre, which is the initial class of this circle, where you actually set the height and width to equal because it's a square, and then you set the border radius to 50% to make it a circle. And but when you do the fab post, you make a position absolute and you make sure that it goes up here. So you write the top position based on that. You take the border radius as 0 because you don't want it to be circular. So everything you change here inside the fab post. But the main thing that drives this animation and makes it even smoother is the transition. So if you set the transition to all, like every property of this element with a 0.2 second of delay, and this is a matrix which is the curve. So every animation is going to have a curve or the curve of a smoothness, which you can play. So it can be ease in, ease out, cubic bezier. There are a lot of things that you can try here. I used ease because that's the easiest one to showcase and to try, when you start. So ease effect is making it even smoother. And only the two classes that are adding value here are the fab post and the content class. So here inside the JS, the next class is content blue. So if you go to the CSS and see what's there inside the content blue, it's again changing of a background color, but again with a transition of 0.2 second ease. So that is called the simplest way of understanding how the trigger is happening, how the feedback is giving to the customer. So this is very important. Every micro interaction should result in a feedback and should tell like what is happening. So a feedback can be anything which tells the user a sort of action. We'll learn more about it as we go forward. GreenSock API has some killer features. If you are not starting only with HTML, CSS, and JS, you can make more stunning animations or micro interactions when you start with GreenSock. We are going to cover only two parts out of it, but there are a lot to learn inside GreenSock itself. It's the simplest syntax and the timeline feature. You can just design the entire timeline on which you want every micro interaction to perform. So the timeline in the green sock can be understood by this example, which I created recently. So this is again a scratchy example just to showcase you the functionality of green sock, and again to showcase you how the micro interaction behaves and what is the usefulness of this. So when you click this, it rotates itself and transform itself from plus to cross. And then when you click again, it goes out of the stroke color and then transform from cross to plus. So again, you see a loop happening because initially it is changing this at this state and then it is going back to the previous state. So there is a loop. There is a trigger when you are while you are clicking it, then only the interaction is happening. So there is a trigger as well. But then there is a feedback as well, because the cross tells the user he can cross it, and then you can trigger a function on the cross, and you can also trigger a function on the plus. Probably this plus indicates that there is a item that the customer or the person can add to cart, as you see inside Amazon or Flipkart. But the cross indicates he can remove that item. So you click the plus, it transforms into the cross. You click the cross, it transforms into the plus. But how to do it? So every interaction that you create in a micro interaction is consisting of two major functions. The first one is a function which you call main function, or the function that drives the interaction. And the second function is the function that actually is related or integrated with GreenSock API. So here the main function is this function, which is a jQuery function, in which you have written on what basis you have to call uh, reset or the run animation. So first of all, the first thing is to actually take the constructor. So you initiate a constructor as timeline max. So you say where SVG tween is timeline max. So you initiated a timeline, and then you create two functions. One is reset, and one is animation. And then you write the main function here, which says what should happen if this is triggered. So if content div or content division is clicked, and if the value of toggle is false, run the animation, otherwise run the reset. Now, what is animation function and what is reset function? We are going to look here. So one is this timeline feature of SVG animations in GreenSock, where you can define from which state you want the content to go to which state. So you can say, I want it to go from scale 1, where you write from to. So you first construct you first have call to a constructor of timeline max. You get an object out of it. You make the call on that object with the function from to. You tell that which property or which jQuery object or which HTML element are you passing to this function, which means like you want to animate or have a micro interaction on this element. And then you define the time till which this should run, and then you define your values. So you say, I want it to be bigger. So I set a CSS property from scale 1 to scale 1.2. That means when it is clicked, when content is clicked, it should go from scale 1 to scale 1.2. And similarly, if you go what is written inside run animation and reset, it is again the same thing. You say from scale 1, I want to go to scale 2, and from height 0, I also want to go to height 100 pixels. And you see that color that was happening inside the SVG, where there was a bluish color coming on the circular part. That was happening because of the stroke width. So if you set the stroke width, the SVG will start filling in. And it should not just come, and it should look smoother. For that, you add an ease. So you add an ease of, let's say, expo.ease in. That means it will use the ease in function from the GreenSock to fill the circle with the stock color. And then you also have seen that it was having a kind of rotation. So if you set the rotation as 45 degrees, that means it will rotate while it was transforming it from cross to plus. So this was the run animation. In reset, it is totally opposite. In reset, you start with toggle as false, and you start with SVG2 in content scale 1 to something, from 1.2 now to you are making it to 1. From border, for border, you are taking the height 0, because initially you change the height to 100px. And then the rotation, you are also setting to 0. So reset is just opposite of run animation. This is again a very, very crucial interaction, which is content shifting micro interaction. And this is basically important to learn, because it is not a single micro interaction, but actually a combination of various micro interactions, and we call it daisy chain effect. So in daisy chain effect, it starts from an interaction, and then that interaction triggers the next interaction, and then that interaction results to the next interaction, and finally every interaction completes, and it results finally to the initial starting point. And this is called daisy chain. So we are going to look the example of a daisy chain effect. So this example is quoted by Sarah Dressner, and I just find it very interesting to showcase. In this interaction, this is also designed by GreenSock APIs. In this interaction, the best part is to see how you can transform your entire forms on your website or anything that is on the map in a very beautiful manner. So we will start interacting with this interaction. You click it, it opens a form, and then there is a button called contact. So you click contact, and it starts. It asks you to give your email. Just see how the user flows goes, like from one interaction and how many interactions are coming in. So you write your email here. I'm just writing something. So you write your email here, and then you say submit, and then these all are transformed again into a micro interaction, and it says completed, sent successfully. This doesn't end here. We are still missing the loop in the micro interaction. So once you click the cross button, it again transforms into the starting state, making it a complete loop. So trigger, then action. So this is trigger, then a micro interaction which actually gives you a feedback. Okay, fill the form. And then you fill the form. Again, a micro interaction which asks you to fill the form. You click submit after filling some information, and then it transforms back into another micro interaction, which is this one, which says send successfully. And then you cross it, and it transforms back into a loop. So micro interaction, micro interaction, micro interaction, but at the end returns to the back loop. And this is again, if you want to see this code, I will share my slides and you can just go through them. This is the code again written in GreenSort, and simplest code using the timeline constructor again, but a lot of code to just go through every interaction and add and delete stuff while the customer or the person is interacting. The last micro interaction, which is again very useful, is reactive micro interaction. In reactive micro interaction, the trigger happens on the change event, and then reactions are based on the user inputs. This interaction was named by me because I created it some time back. So I named it like reactive micro interaction. You can see a question mark right in front of it, because if you have any other great suggestions of what the name should be, you can just drop me a note and I will consider it. But it is something like an interaction that is happening on the user inputs, and feedback is given to the user inputs in real time. I have seen these interactions happening somewhere else as well, but I haven't seen any name for these interactions. So the reactive interaction is a bit funny because it is an interaction where you write inputs, and then the eyes of this can say figure starts moving in according to the length of your user input. So for example, if I'm writing this, if I'm writing my email address, so it starts moving to the left. And if I start removing my email address, then it will start moving toward left on my other side. So basically, the length is the input, which by which you get the feedback. So the lengthier it is, the more writer it would be, and the lesser length it would have, the more left it will go. And in the password field, if I start writing any password, then it just closes the eyes, because nobody wants to see your password. So nobody should see the password. So it just closes the eyes. And if it removes the password and you start again, then it opens the eyes again. So what's important to learn here is how you can integrate various SVGs together using the API, GreenSock API. And again, how to animate them so that they look like a micro interaction. So I'm going to quickly show you this one as well. So this is the eyes container class, and then it contains two SVGs. So one SVG is only for this, the eyebrows, which you can easily find from internet. And then one SVG is for this eye outer part. And then one SVG is for the circle. So you can create circles using CSS. So for example, if you go to the CSS, you will find there are some things that I have changed inside it. Like for example, the classes which I have entered, I have written are mostly the rewritten on the SVGs. So for example, I have filled the colors according to my need and overwritten the SVGs that were there inside the HTML. And at the same time, I can just start with JS and start interacting with those SVGs. So in the JS, if you can see the code, I initially set the eye as open, and then I again created a constructor, which is a Greenstock API constructor, and then I have created a function. So as I told that there should be a main function that should do everything, and then there should be some functions that are made for specific things. So the function cwrite is taking the input of the length of the input from the input box. So it is specifically taking the length of the text inside the input box, and then based on that length, adjusting the x coordinate of the I and moving the SVG towards right or left based on that coordinate. So you can see that I have used the function as stagger from to. This is different from to a bit, and you can pass multiple classes that you want to animate in a single time. So instead of animating only one class at a time, you can pass in the entire CSS classes. And you can also pass the ease function. So this time I'm using sign.ease out. There are some combinations of sign and cos there, so you can try what fits for you. Generally, the sign is the sine curve, which you have seen in your mathematics. So the combination of sine was working well in the smoothness while going right and left, and that's a kind of inspiration from other animations as well that uses the sine and cosine respectively. And then I have written an animation on the inner eye. So this one is the inner eye and this one is the outer eye. So for the inner eye, the rotation is happening, and for the outer eye, the rotation is also happening. So based on where the text is moving and what is the length of the text, the rotations are set accordingly inside these animations. And finally, they returns the entire element from the C write function. Similarly, in the C left function, you specifically return the element from the C left. So here you return the entire element from the C left, and here you return the entire element from C right. So for example, in the C left, the things are going to be a positive. In C right, everything is in negative. Then in C left, everything is going to be positive. So that gives you a clarity of that they are just opposite. And then you have a main function where you write everything. So this is another one. This is close eye function, and then there is open eye function. And the close eye function, you specifically make sure that this eyebrow should just go down, and then this eye should look like close. So you fill the entire stroke, or you fill the entire eye with a color. So here I'm just filling that stroke color inside the SVG of the eye if somebody is closing the eye. And then I'm just changing the position of this eyebrow at the bottom of the eye. So uh, in the eyebrow, I have set a rotation. So this is just rotated. So first this is rotated 180 degrees, and then it is translated below. So you see effect when I start typing password. So there are two things that are happening. First, they are rotated, and then they are translated back. So, and at the same time, if you just want to see how the passwords are written in the animation, you can also check in the CSS and HTML how they are actually transformed. And then finally, you can set the main function. So in the main function, you can actually check the length of the input, and based on the length of the input, you can take a decision whether you have to close the eye or whether you have to open the eye. And based on that, you move the eye towards right or the left. So what are you waiting for? You know SVGs today. You learn about the Greenstock API. Just need some exploration of how these APIs are working together. And you also have some mathematics that you can quickly try inside your system. You just need to go through your social media apps and check how many micro interactions are you interacting on the daily basis, and how many of them are you really find engaging. And even if you see the Twitter interaction where there is a heart sign which you click, it's not a simple interaction where the color is filled up on the heart, but it is something that triggers. So once you click, it just pop out with some celebration, and it's so fancy. And if you just go and check it, now you will be seeing it with a new eye and new perspective. So I think I'm done with most of my part. We are also going to catch for the AMA session. Uh, so thank you so much for attending this session, and over to moderators. Thank you.